In 49 states, it's just basketball, but this is Indiana. Our two star players, Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam, put our team on their backs, and they just decided that we were not going to lose this game today.
And that MVP is Pascal Siakam.
First of all, shout out Indy, man. It's been such an amazing experience for me so far. From the first day I landed here, like the love has been amazing. Chad, KP, just unbelievable, man. Like, you know, first class organization.
And then tonight, sometimes the unexpected happens. And sometimes Thomas Bryant catches fire from deep.
Yeah, Thomas, yeah!
You're not going to have to worry about any questions about the team trying harder than you did tonight, because it was obvious, man. You guys did a great job. Congratulations. Look, you are the longest tenured member of this team. 10 seasons wearing this uniform. And now you're going to the NBA Finals, man. Tell me what that does for you.
Woo, man, it's been a long time coming, man. Come on. Man, first of all, man, I got to give a huge shout out to the Simons, man. They never stopped believing in me. This front office, this organization is amazing. I've spent a third of my life here, man. It's crazy. You know, I've really grown up here with y'all. And it's so validating just to get this in this fashion against one of our rivals 25 years later. And I'm just excited for what's next, man. We got 4 more.
But for the first time in 25 years, they are going to the NBA Finals.
Hello, Pacers fans, and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show. And this is it, the moment, the stage, the night, Game 7 of the NBA Finals. One game to decide it all. After tonight, someone will be lifting the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and the Indiana Pacers are just one win away from making history. This isn't just a basketball game. This is for the old school ABA Pacers, the Mel Daniels, George McGinnis, and Roger Brown era. This is for Reggie Miller and the heartbreaks and the heroics, for the battles in the East, the almost, the what-ifs, and all the fans who have waited for decades just to see their Pacers play in the finals and have a chance for an NBA title. Tyrese Haliburton and this young, fearless squad have the chance to do what no Pacers team has ever done before: win an NBA championship. From those who paved the way in Market Square Arena to the legends of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, it all comes down to 48 minutes in Oklahoma City. We've got our final thoughts, the keys to the game, and what this moment means, not just to the Pacers, not just to the players, not to the city, a fan base, but also that legacy. They're looking forward to Game 7, the biggest night in Pacers franchise history. It all starts now on the Pacers Fever Show. Let's get into this pregame. Number 1, Oklahoma City Thunder versus the number 4 Indiana Pacers. That game will be tonight on June 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. And we have quite the show for you, as we will talk about all things that have happened over the last couple of days, catch you up on any news that we might have, and just talk about the Indiana Pacers in this game tonight. I know it probably helps some of you listening to this kind of move the time along. I know a lot of people had Sunday plans, weekend plans, going to church, going to see family, having some brunch, whatever it might be, whatever you're into. But we're just trying to pass the time, as 8 p.m. feels like an eternity away. It's only 8 hours away. I'm recording this, obviously. I'm live on YouTube. If you want to check that out, make sure to head over to YouTube and like and subscribe to our channel. I'm going to post this as a regular video and probably use it as a premiere, so that way it's about 3 hours long, so at least it'll kill some time leading up to this game. But I can remember back to the days where, and you know, I just played high school ball, but these late games, right, these 8 o'clock starts, they're brutal, especially for fan bases like the Pacers, where most of our games start at 7 p.m. So it's even an hour after what we're typically used to in all these games, except for tonight. And I think it was game 3 or 4 started at 8 p.m. But we're here, we're waiting for it. It's a long way away, but we will make it. Just consume as much content as you want, or like some of you guys are doing. I think some of you are staying away, far away, because you just can't handle the the anxiety, the pressure that you start to feel when you think about just the magnitude of this game and the magnitude of what we're getting ready to experience. You know, we talked about this multiple times on the show, and I think just because of the magical run that the Pacers are on, the team of destiny title that this team has been given, but just you go through an 82 game season and then you play 20 some odd postseason games, and it can really have an effect on just the fan base because you go through so many highs, you go through so many lows. After every win, you feel like you can't lose again. After every loss, it feels like the end of the world. And we've reached the pinnacle. We've reached the last day possible for the NBA season. And I'm not sure, even when we were, and there were some people obviously that felt so confident in this Pacers team based off of what they did last year. I had the Pacers getting to the Eastern Conference Finals again. I didn't have them beating the Celtics. That was my prediction way back at the beginning of the postseason, but also throughout the season, just because I felt if Boston is healthy, they're still the team to beat in the Eastern Conference until proven otherwise. And now that they've been knocked out, even though they've had some injuries, there's a new king in the East, and that is your Indiana Pacers. They're waiting for their moment to shine on this big stage tonight. And I think that the more I've started to think about it, the more anxious I've gotten. But just honestly, I think we've got to also take a little bit of a step back. And I know a lot of people don't really want to do this because they want it to end in that storybook manner. And, we've got a 50-50 chance of this ending the way that we want it to, right? But if you look back, I mean, there is so much. This will go down as the best Pacers season I've ever watched, and probably anybody's ever watched, just because this is the latest stage. We have never been able to say that if we win one more game, we are NBA champions, and that's what the Pacers have done this season. They've gotten all the way to the brink, and they've done it behind spectacular play from all sorts of different players. I think that's what makes it so exciting. And I think what makes this team so exciting is because there's so much investment into each of the individual players, because each individual player on this team brings something that has made this team a success. And you can go up and down the roster. And once we do, we're going to do like a play along exit interview episode after the season, no matter what happens. And we're going to talk about each of the players and just what some highlights from their season, and talk about the importance of their role with this team. And we always talk about that as far as starring in your role. I want to say it was Jefferson or Udonis Haslam that made that point of you want to star in your role. And I think it's really the first time I'd ever heard it. I know it's probably been a saying for a long time, but there is so much in this Pacer team where I think you love these guys because each and every one of them, you can point to moments throughout the year that you've just had a true appreciation and love for each of these guys. And it's a it's a relationship, right? So it's two ways. You go in and out with the player. I think you've got moments where you're just like, what is going on with this guy? And then there's moments where you're like, I can't see us ever letting this person leave the team. So again, I think there's so much emotion wrapped up in sports, and the I guess the care and the love that you have for your individual teams. And it's the same way on the other side with Oklahoma City. They've got an MVP, they've got Shea, J-Dub, a budding superstar, I believe, Chet, a really good player in this league, and their future is very bright. And I think when you look at just watching this game, watching this series and this postseason in the last season, it's just been a true collection of great moments for everybody across the league, but even more so with our Pacers. I mean, there's so many moments we can point back to of when the tide changes and when the Pacers really become that team that we've been excited for the last couple of years, as they make the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They add Pascal Siakam, and truly Pascal came into his own with this team this season. I mean, we really didn't see this team really integrate Pascal, I think, to his most effective abilities, and you finally start to see that, I think. And as the season starts to turn over, Tyrese Haliburton has a second half that is an all NBA level, and that gets him on the all NBA third team. You see Aaron Nesmith become a great second 2B option, third option as far as his scoring. He was the second best player after the calendar turned over. But again, it's all leading up to this moment of Game 7, playing on the road with the chance, if you win this game, you win a title. And I don't think any of us had that down on our bingo cards. If you did, kudos to your confidence. but I certainly didn't. And I thought, there was a good chance that they could get to a moment where, they had a chance to beat Boston in an Eastern Conference Finals, but I never did think that we would get to this moment here. And against a team that has been historic in so many ways. I know that you've probably have heard this from every which direction about how great this Oklahoma City team is. But I think when you think about how great they have been and how good they have been throughout this whole postseason and regular season, the fact that the Pacers have gone toe-to-toe with them, and now it's up to one game to determine who's going to be the NBA champion. You could also say that this Pacers team is historic in ways as well. I mean, they're going to go down as one of the biggest underdogs in NBA Finals history. If they win the title, that people are already calling this the biggest upset that's ever occurred in an NBA Finals. So a lot of stuff could go the Pacers' way in taking their first NBA championship home to Indianapolis. And I'd imagine the whole state of Indiana and right outside the state. I mean, every Pacers fan is considering their plans for a possible parade that could happen in the next week. Obviously, we don't get too ahead of ourselves because what we have to do on at 8:00 tonight on in very hostile territory, it is, again, I think many people considering it improbable that the Pacers walk off of a floor that they've not played well on and holding that Larry O'Brien trophy, getting back on the plane with their first championship. I think you've got a lot of people. I've saw a bunch of predictions from ESPN. It was 7-1 in favor of the Thunders, Thunders, plural, Thunder. And then I saw an Athletic post, which was really funny because there were 5 people leaning Pacers, 4 people leaning to the Thunder. And that was just a really fun graphic to look at just because of how the turntables have turned, right? I think is the fun little saying that they have now. So it has changed drastically the opinion of what this Indiana Pacers team can do in the biggest series they've ever been in their franchise history. But also remember, the Thunder are playing in their biggest series that they've ever played in. And to be quite frank with you, and I hope they're listening to this, just how big this game is for them. We'll get into little nerves in there. But this game's huge for the Thunder because if they blow this is going to go down as the biggest choke job that has ever happened in an NBA Finals or even throughout the NBA postseason. Because, again, you had a historic team, one that people will consider, a top 10 NBA team regular season ever, even higher probably. And you lost it to a lowly 4 seed. I mean, come on. So I think there's a lot of excitement in knowing that. And we're going to get into so many of these things today. This show's liable to be pretty long, but I'm trying to fill as much time before this game happens tonight. And if you're in here live and you want to drop comments, go ahead and drop them. I can throw them up on the screen and we can talk about anything you all want to talk about. If you're joining, thanks for joining. This has been, again, let me know where you're joining from or where you're watching from or how you found the show, but also what do you think about tonight? How are we feeling? What are the vibes out there? I know it's probably a lot of nerves. I feel like off of that Game 6 win, there's some confidence in behind that as well. That's the best that this Pacers team has looked all series. And, they say momentum's not really a thing in the playoffs, but I will say I'm not necessarily one that agrees with that. I get that each game is a different chapter, but the way that the players perform, it's 100%. I think there's momentum. And when players, fade for a game, it's not necessarily because they lost momentum or confidence. Lost momentum or because they just forgot how to play basketball. It's momentum. I think that there's a lot in saying that, Miles Turner hasn't necessarily played as well in this finals, and that's kind of carried over from game to game. Tyrese Haliburton has had a hard time playing in OKC, and that's kind of carried on game to game. But you also had TJ McConnell, who's playing the best basketball he's played all season, and that's carried over from game to game. Pascal Siakam, his three-point shooting, not known is not known as an exceptionally good three-point shooter, but had a really good season shooting the three ball, and that seems to have carried all the way over into the playoffs. Aaron Nesmith, same kind of thing. Andrew Nembhard, I mean, we're going to see, I think, a different level of intensity, just like we saw in Game 6 of that Knicks series when Nembhard basically didn't let Jalen Brunson breathe in that game. I think you're going to see that same kind of intensity from Andrew, and I will say it's easier to defend at a high level because it really just requires intensity and focus with the defensive side of things. Obviously, they're going to throw some adjustments at you, but at the end of the day, defense is oftentimes you can turn it on. Like you can turn your individual defense on when you're guarding somebody one-on-one on the point of the attack. You can turn that intensity up. Whereas you can't just magically flip on your offense, right? Because sometimes you can struggle in games and not shoot it well. But for the most part, unless you get into foul trouble, you can turn on a different level of defensive intensity. And I think you'll see you'll see a Andrew Nemhard that I think you'll understand why it's called Nemhell at times, because he has been a game changer in this series. He has taken Shea's ability to create offense away. Obviously, Shea is going to score. He is the MVP of this league. But if you look at the games that the Thunder have struggled, it's because he's just not been able to create for his team. So game 7 will be very interesting in the fact that your MVP, you want them to be able to carry you through big games like this, but you also have to be very careful in relying on that heliocentric idea of an offense. You don't want to necessarily rely on just one guy to get it done, because as we have seen with every single NBA Finals game 7 or clinching game, there is always somebody that doesn't necessarily get the headlines all the time that steps up in such a big way. And we'll talk about that in the show as well. But again, I kind of just going on a tangent there. Welcome into the show if you're watching on YouTube. Again, we're at the Pacers Fever Show over on YouTube. If you want to like, subscribe, comment. What are your predictions for tonight's game, game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals? No, that's not right. The NBA Finals is tonight at 8 p.m. on ABC. Remember, 8 p.m. It's not at 8:30. So if you tune in at 8:30, you're going to be very disappointed just because the game will be probably through the first quarter at that point, depending on how the officiating goes. But 30 minutes earlier tonight, I think it's a prime time window, and they move that game. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern time over in OKC. But 8 o'clock tonight Eastern time in Indianapolis. And the world will be tuning in, because we have seen, I think it was like 14 different broadcast languages on the Pacers socials when they were talking about the Pascal Siakam dunk in game 6. They had different languages calling that game, and I think there were like 14 or 15 of them that the Pacers pulled. And there's even more than that. I think that everywhere around the world has been watching. I mean, I've seen comments from all sorts of different places. Saw a couple from Israel, saw a couple from Japan and China on other people's podcasts. So this is something that everybody is watching. And tonight, I mean, we've got our Pacer faithful over there in Australia that also watch. Shout out to all those guys and girls over there. They are enjoying some Pacers basketball. I think it's probably like 9 o'clock over there in the morning or something like that. It'll be like morning. Like, can you imagine waking up on Monday morning with your coffee watching the Pacers for an NBA title? That would just be absolutely crazy. I imagine that they're going to be skipping out on some work. But again, I think if the Pacers win this game, there's not going to be a whole lot of work done anyway on Monday. Even if the Pacers lose, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of work done on Monday, as the Pacers could be celebrating an NBA title. And then just think about that. I mean, like I said and alluded to, I think if a title comes back to Indianapolis, that whole state's going to show up to Indianapolis to celebrate a parade. I can't imagine what that'll look like, just because we've seen what other championships have looked like. Obviously, the Colts have brought back a championship to Indianapolis. The Fever have been champions at points. And then you look at the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers have a great chance here to bring back an NBA title for the first time in franchise history. But let's get into pre-gaming. All right, we talked long enough. Again, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. Doris Burke, Breen, and Jefferson will be on the call. You've got the officials for tonight's game they have been announced, and it does not include Scott Foster. So we are not getting a game 8 in this series. And I joke, but also it's funny that the extender is not in a game 7. They've decided to keep him home, which is interesting. I mean, that's a headline of itself. I think when you look at officiate, I think it said that he's had the most games ever called in the NBA Finals that is still an active ref, and he's been placed at home. So I do wonder if the league has listened because the crew that is coming are also people on his crew that were in the last game that this did not go well for the Pacers. And obviously, I don't want to talk too much about officiating because I just don't think it affects anything as much as people think it does. But if you look at it again tonight, there is no Scott Foster. So those that have complained about the officiating, there you go. The one guy you've had biggest beef with, he will not be calling tonight's game. I think tonight's game will be a relatively loose whistle. I don't think the NBA, and this is going to come down probably from the NBA, of them talking to their officials saying, let's let them play. Let's let them decide the game. Obviously, I don't think we need free throws deciding the NBA finals. It's already going to be probably a pretty ugly, grinded out kind of game, as most game sevens are. But I don't think that we'll see as tight of a whistle as we've seen in some of these games throughout the series. I thought the officiating throughout the postseason has been probably the best I remember it in a very long time. I feel like they have let the guys play in a more physical way, and that I think favors. Honestly, I know the defense for OKC has been good, but they talked about it last game. They said the Pacers just came out with a different kind of force that we've not really been accustomed to seeing in these last 6 games. So it's been a huge favor to the Pacers. I think that the officiating's been a little bit less tight, I guess you could say, in the postseason. I think that whistle obviously benefits the Pacers. But talking about Game 7, just a couple of notes before we get into the actual nitty gritty, the meat and the potatoes of the actual episode. Since the ABA-NBA merger at the start of the 1976 and 77 season, there have only been 8 winner-take-all games to decide an NBA title. Sunday night we'll see that number grow to 9 games when the Thunder host the Pacers and they square off in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. The first time that the league's championship round has gone the distance since 2016. And if you remember back to 2016, that is the LeBron James leading the Cavs back from their 3-1 deficit in the best of 7 series to dethrone the 73-win Golden State Warriors on their home floor. A historic team, might I add, right? One of the best teams to ever played in an NBA regular season. Same kind of thing the Thunder are on right now. So maybe a little bit of foreshadowing there, I hope. So, but yeah, the Thunder, again, waiting for their first NBA title since they left Seattle for Oklahoma City 17 years ago. I imagine everybody in Seattle's rooting for the Pacers at this point. The franchise left the Supersonics history in the past. I mean, they don't celebrate anything of the Supersonics. They've pretty much isolated themselves from anything Seattle Supersonics, and I think that's a lot to do with the fact that it does sound like Seattle would be a destination for the next NBA team. But they packed up their stuff, left, and hopefully the karma gets to them in this game because we won a title coming back to Indy, including an NBA Finals trip to 2012. These Thunder. And a conference finals appearances in 2014, 2016. Oklahoma City had the 7th most wins in NBA history at 68 this season. It will be the 5th best team in terms of wins in the history of the sport if the Thunder can claim this year's title. So, again, a lot riding on this game for Oklahoma City. I mean, tons of pressure, I would feel, needs to be thrown Oklahoma City's way just because of the magnitude of this game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would put himself in a top tier of players that again, this is incredible, this bit of information, and he would be in a rare group where he has won the scoring title and the league's regular season MVP award and wins a championship, something that Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar have pulled off, but nobody else has. So that's, again, winning a championship after winning the scoring title and the league's MVP. That is quite a group. I mean, you'd be talking about Shai having one of the foremost historic seasons as a player individually, and that's quite an incredible feat. And something that I think Thunder fans can be very excited about going forward is that Shai seems to be the real deal. And so I'm not, there's a lot of talk about dynasties and what does a dynasty look like. And I think it's a very objective thing. I mean, I think there becomes points where some people would be teetering between this is a dynasty versus this is just a team that's been, historically good for the last couple of years. I think there's a lot of that. But if you look at just stats and their ability to play in multiple NBA finals going forward, I think that you could see this team in other NBA title games coming up in their future and them reaching this peak again. I could see it. But also I could see it with the Pacers just because over the next couple of years, I think the East is going to look a lot different than what we have seen in the past. The Pacers are hoping again to cap the most unexpected run to a championship in NBA history. The Pacers have completed one historic comeback after the next in every single round of these playoffs. Tyrese Haliburton leading the way in this very unprecedented run of clutch making shots. I mean, throughout a career, what Tyrese has done in this postseason, that's probably what would have seen throughout a career of a player, right? If you think about Reggie, all of his clutch shots didn't come in one single postseason. They were spread out throughout his career. You've now seen Tyrese Haliburton make clutch shots in one single postseason that probably any other player has ever made throughout their whole career in the postseason. So it's been quite a magical run. And like I said, my favorite analogy so far has been that Mike Breen talking about this has been a magic carpet ride, and it has its up and downs. It bobs and weaves through different challenges and different obstacles. And yet here they stand, one win away from doing the impossible, doing the improbable, winning a Game 7 on the road against a historic NBA team. The Pacers won a couple of ABA championships behind Hall of Famers Mel Daniels and Roger Brown in the 70s. So it's been a long time for fans that are a little bit older, right? I mean, my dad remembers some of those ABA games and those titles. My grandfather, who recently passed, he would remember these games, and they've been Pacer fans for all of their lives. And they've never seen, or they had never seen anything quite like what this Pacers team has done over the last couple of years. And that's special. I mean, you talk about, and I'm sure that those watching that have lineage, when you talk about Pacers history through your family, I mean, it brings a family together at, all sorts of different times of the year. I'm grateful that I've been able to enjoy games with, I was able to enjoy a 2016 Cubs World Series championship with my grandfather still here, and obviously my dad here, and both Cubs fans. Well, I converted my grandpa, I think, but my dad and I, big Cubs fans, suffered for a very long time, but got to see them raise a trophy on an away field in Cleveland when the Cubs did that back in 2016. Dave Hooper said, I lost track of Pacers season years ago after moving out of Indy and then all the way across the country. This playoff run has been a great slice of hometown. Absolutely. I live in Orlando. It's a long story to how I got here, but my dad and my whole family, born and raised in Indianapolis area. And we moved to South Carolina when I was like 5, I think it was. And we were a Pacer. I mean, he was a diehard Pacers fan ever since the ABA days, and my grandfather way before then. And so we've been around this franchise. I've been a fan all 32 years of my life. Obviously, probably don't remember. I remember very few moments of the 2000 finals. It was only 7, but I do remember instances of it, which is funny how the memory works. But I do remember instances. I remember the Reggie missed shot. I think it was at the elbow to lose that game when the Lakers eventually clinched that. But Dave, like you said, I think there's a lot of us like that, right? There's a lot of people that, and that happens, right, with particular seasons, just because, I mean, you think about it, that time, that Nate Bjorkgren time, and leading into Nate McMillan, like there were some really dark days, probably some of the darkest days I've ever seen as a Pacers fan. I mean, you think all the way back to probably the Malice being, a fallout after that when we were playing David Harrison, I think, at starting center and had about 6 guys rostered at that time because everybody else was hurt or suspended for the year. That was a dark time, obviously. But I mean, as far as this Pacers team's concerned, like I've said, and I've had conversations. I've got a good group chat that goes, and we talk all about all sorts of things. But we were talking about NBA organizations and what teams can do to be successful, draft picks, tanking, all that stuff. And it comes up that we've been lucky, I think, as Pacers fans to enjoy a time, most of our time, where we really, I mean, honestly, we really don't, I think, appreciate the fact that this team has never been a tank team. Like, this team has never gone into seasons going, let's tank and just put all of our hopes on that, landing that lottery pick and getting a guy, right? I think that's been so cool. Dave says, I was 33 in 2000, listened to every game with Mark and Slick on WIBC. Great seasons back then and oh so close to winning it all. Yeah. 2000, I mean, Reggie's time, right? The Malice in the Palace after that. Well, with Reggie as he's closing out his career, but you had all those guys. Then, I mean, fast forward to 2013, 2014, Paul George, Hibbert, Hill, all of them, Lance, David West. I mean, you're talking about, I mean, just great runs that always ended in tragedy, right? And not tragic, like, there's far but worse things than just losing championships in sports. But as a sports fan, those are tragic moments, right? You run up against Kobe and Shaq in 2000. You run up against LeBron and the Heatles in 2013, 2014. Victor Oladipo. I mean, we had a great stretch there, and then he goes down with the quad. There's been so many. I mean, the Pacers have been on the precipice of great success and winning titles. And, I thought MJ in 97. Yeah. Don't forget about MJ. Right. It just, and like you said, a lot of fans, I'm only 32, so I don't remember a whole ton of, obviously of Slick and obviously Jordan and them. Slick, I mean, around for quite some time during my time, but again, I've always watched games with Denary. So, that's it's cool to see the different eras of Pacer fans, just because, I mean, my dad and my grandfather would speak often about ABA days and how special the Pacers were back then. And then you got, Slick and Larry Brown and then Larry Bird and Rick Carlisle. Like, it's cool how this franchise seems to go full circle. And it's been a lot of fun to enjoy it as, not somebody that's a brand new fan who only remember Paul George era or even the Victor Oladipo, TJ Warren era. It's cool to be able to remember and recall some of those. I mean, I've been to games where Reggie's played, Mark Jackson, right, Rick Schmitz, Sam Perkins and them, watching Mullins play, and then watching the Bad Boys, our version of the Bad Boys with Steven Jackson and Reggie, Brad Miller, Ron Artest. I mean, you start to get into those and against the Heat. And then some weird eras of like Sarunas Jasikevičius. You got to remember those, or the Peja Stojakovic era was a lot of fun. So there's just been some crazy moments in Pacers fandom history. But ultimately, like I said, I just appreciate this franchise so much. And I know we've got a little bit off target here, but it's always good to have people commenting live and talking about it and reminiscing. Because Dave, like you said, what we would give, right, to have Slick still here today to be able to enjoy this. It's cool that, I don't know if anybody's heard it, but I think they just recently, I forget who did the story. It might've been Scott Agnes or somebody, just did a interview with Nancy Leonard. And it might've been the Pacers actually, but they did a really cool interview with Nancy Leonard. So if you're not aware, that is out there right now. If you Google Nancy Leonard NBA Finals, I'm sure it'll pop up. But I think they just released it today, talking to her. While my wife and I are watching, I throw out old lines at Slick Leonard's color commentary. My wife is patient with it. Yeah, I've heard some Slick calls. That, I mean, again, I think you always got the really calm, kind of stable the ship, right, in like a Mark Boyle, and then you've got the color, right, with the color commentary of the person beside them that's got to add the flavor. You think about the television side of it, you think about Quinn Buckner and them, and it just, you got to have, you've got that stable, steady ship, right? The ones that'll be legendary for a lot of their calls, but you always had the Slick Leonard reactions after Mark kept it, even keel, and all of a sudden Slick's blowing up over there and falling out of his chair and sometimes positive, sometimes not so positive about what's going on the floor. But yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that a baby. Yeah, OKC misses a free throw, which they don't do a lot of, but yeah, that would be great. That a baby. Slick, I mean, obviously I wasn't old enough to remember a lot of it, but the whole Nancy Leonard and Slick Leonard saving the Pacers from being shipped out of town and just unbelievable. Part of me is selfish for them, obviously, to win the championship for everybody else, for our own personal gains here. But what it would mean for all these stories to come out, it'd be so cool to see what comes after this. Like, gosh, I can only dream of what a parade would look like, a Nancy Leonard car or whatever it might be. So yeah, let's get into Game 7. Actually talking about what Game 7s usually mean. They are not historically great games. They're oftentimes low scoring affairs, and it'll be interesting because this is the first time in this era of NBA hoops that we've seen a Game 7. And with the way that things have changed, with how good these offenses are, even when they struggle, I wouldn't be shocked, obviously, if these are, it's a really close game over the 100 threshold. But I think it will be a close game because there's not been really a big margin between these games. I think it said that, 6.9s have separated, or 6.9 points have separated the Game 7s in NBA Finals. So that is a really small margin that I think will stand true in this series as well. I think that we do see a really close game. Obviously, it benefits the Pacers the more points that are scored. I think that you've seen the way that the Pacers have kind of bottled up OKC's offense. It's about figuring out their defense. I mean, that's honestly what this comes down to, is what can the Pacers do against this defense that seems to grow a different head when you head home to OKC? I think that's been the biggest challenge. But last 5 Game 7s have ended 93 to 89, 95 to 88, 83 to 79, 81 to 74, and 90 to 84 respectively. Not since 1988, when the Lakers beat the Pistons 108-105, has a team reached triple digits in a finals Game 7. So again, I think this final series has been historic in so many ways. I think we're going to add another chapter to that, just the history that it makes. And again, I think the more points scored, the favor lies with the Pacers. The Pacers haven't won a playoff game with fewer than 108 points, but they did just turn in their best defensive effort of the postseason in Game 6, where they only allowed 91 points. And the Thunder, meanwhile, have not done very well when they've scored 110 points or fewer. They are 1-6 in the playoffs when they've scored 110 points or fewer. So that will be something to watch. Obviously, that 110 threshold seems to be where the Pacers thrive. They have not lost a game yet when they've hit that 110 mark. So, and that's been throughout the postseason, and in the regular season, that was also a heavy favorite towards the Pacers. When the Pacers score 110, I think they've only lost a handful of games throughout the regular season as well. So that's where the Pacers are going to. I mean, that's a good barometer of how the Pacers are going offensively. I don't know if it gets to 110, just because this game, like I said, I think Game 7's, there's so much pressure. There's so many people that are going to get nerves and anxious and angry, and there's all sorts of different emotions that are going to come in this game for fans and players. I just don't see it being a high scoring game, but if it is, I think it does favor Indiana. Since seeding has began, and that was back in 1984, only one team seeded 4th or lower have won an NBA title, and that was the Houston Rockets, who were the number 6 seed back in 1995. Indiana has won 18 fewer games than the Thunder in the regular season, so this would be, in terms of regular season wins, the largest upset in NBA Finals League history. Dave says, I bet the OKC fans wish they had the Knicks or Celtics. Yeah, I loved, the Celtics. The Celtics fans love the Pacers because I think they understand. They're one of the only fan bases that understand how good this Pacers team is. I think every single other team, other 28 teams, are just have this weird vengeance they want to have against the Pacers, and Knicks fans are extremely salty. I don't think Knicks fans would have realized, if the Knicks would have gotten into this would have been a 5-game series. I don't think the Knicks quite understand what that if the Pacers defense locked you up like that, imagine what this Thunder defense would have done to that Knicks team. That would have been brutal for them. It's the Bird connection too. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Larry has a lot to do with that. I've always felt that way whenever the Pacers have gone up again because they've done that quite a bit where they've played the Celtics in the playoffs. I think it was back in Paul Pierce's day too. There's this streamline right with the way Larry. I mean, Larry's footprint is in this team currently. I mean, he's still doing draft evaluation for this team. He was in the building, I think, right before Game 4. It was where they were having some guys in for draft purposes, and Larry was there. He is still, and then obviously Rick Carlisle being underneath him for so long. Oh wow, just broke Kevin Durant to Houston. I'm surprised that would never have happened in David Stern's NBA. Getting announced, KD just got traded to Houston, so that's big for the Pacers. Stay over there in that West Coast, and let it be a bloodbath. But anyway, 37-year-old Kevin Durant headed to Houston. Where was I? Oh, yes. I was talking to Dave. The Bird connection. I think there's so much respect there. The Knicks wouldn't have stood a chance, and the Celtics are just so banged up. And again, I think that goes to show you, Pacers fans, that's how big this game is tonight. Even OKC fans, nothing is a guarantee. I mean, I think so many people thought the Celtics were in line to repeat, and look what happened. I mean, now you're talking about the Celtics shedding those NBA champion players. And I mean, there's been a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk when that KD stuff was happening. There was a ton going around that the Celtics were going to try to blow it up a little bit because, I mean, there's talk about Jaylen Brown being in trade rumors and Derek White. Like, they've obviously are going to get big packages for that. But, I mean, because of Jason Tatum's injury, again, nothing is ever set in stone. Like I think so many people think about, like when people talk when you can talk dynasty after like when they win their 4th championship. That's when you can go, is this team a dynasty? Because the Thunder were getting, man, this team's a dynasty. They haven't even won a championship yet. So let them have their moment, right? Let them see if they can win it. They can still win this. This is going to be a very tough hill to climb for the Pacers. But again, just let's not start the dynasty talk until after they've done something. So anyway, back to it. Keys to the game. Let's talk about them because there are a lot of keys, I think, for each of the teams. So I'm going to break it down first for the Thunder, right? I think that we're going to give you 5 keys, and they kind of branch out to other little smaller keys or instances. But key number 1 is 100% going to be their home court. I mean, it's been a beast. It's been like a 6th man. It has been impossible to hear in there. I know they are not as good as the Gainbridge Fieldhouse faithful. We don't have to use those fake noisemaker things to create sound. You can do that all you want. But if you give Gainbridge Fieldhouse those clappers, it would be probably ear piercing. So you manufacture all the noise that you want, Thunder fans. It's not real. Leaning into the energy of the home crowd, though, it does seem to be quite an advantage. And the biggest thing is these players like a young college basketball team, because they always call it the college environment. These young players thrive in their home environments because they're comfortable. This OKC team is pedestrian at best when they play on the road because they just completely forget how to play defense. I mean, you go look at their defensive ratings. It's like a 117 when they're on the road. That's one of the worst in the postseason. They're one of the worst away teams in the postseason. They've had some good wins, but man, they've been awful on the road. The Pacers have not been good in OKC, so that's a big advantage for Oklahoma City. I think the number is still right around. The Pacers have only led for like 2 minutes at OKC. And if you go back to the regular season, they didn't play well in OKC then either. So it's been tough sledding there. I think it is really there are a couple things that this game boils down to. It boils down to the Pacers punching back at them as much as possible and not letting them get out to a 10-point lead early because that crowd can lift them up. If you make this a tight ball game in the first quarter, second quarter, if you go into halftime and it's a tight game, man, those screws start to tighten up a bit, and they're just waiting for something to go wrong. And you could feel it. You could feel it when the Pacers got it down to 2 points back in Game 5. You could feel it in Game 1. I mean, there were even instances in Game 2 where you can tell that they want to explode, but they're very uneasy. They're very unsure of, and because it is a young team, it's really hard to put stock into a very young team because there's some growing pains that the Thunder still have to go to. That's why I picked the Thunder not to get to this point, because I felt like they still have some growing to do. And I think the road games are a true testament to that belief. I do think that it's a good thing they have had home court advantage. Let's just say that, because it has been a really rough watch for them to go on the road. And I think that Denver series ends differently if Denver has the home court advantage. But again, that's why you take care of business in the regular season. I'm not trying to put that off on OKC as them being a bad team, but I still have questions around certain things that have happened in this postseason. Chet, the game has just looked too big for him at moments this series, and he's not been very good. J-Dub has risen to that occasion, so I think you can look at him and say, honestly, I mean, SGA is a great player, really good player. I have been more impressed with J-Dub, right? Thank you, guys. I think Alex or Facci over there at Setting the Pace. Thanks, I appreciate that. I love your guys' show. Love your graphics. Best podcast, right, for the Pacers. I don't mean to offend anybody else, but they are my go-to as far as the podcast is concerned, listening to them. So if for some reason you're not listening to them, which I think everybody is at this point, definitely go give them a listen, because they are my favorite. So, but yeah, I mean, keys to the game, it's going to be about limiting that their ability to get out into a big lead, because I feel, again, that crowd can just like our crowd does. I mean, when the Pacers start rolling, it's like it's an avalanche, not a cavalanche, but an avalanche. And it often feels insurmountable. I mean, I think you can ask the Thunder about that. You can ask anybody that's walked into that building. That is a difficult building to play in at Gainbridge. And OKC is right there with them, with their ability to change games with their intensity. Looking at OKC, again, this is how great they've been at home in the postseason, plus 247 scoring margin in their 12 home games this postseason, the highest point differential over a span of 12 playoff games at home in NBA history. That's, again, why I think it is so important for OKC to have this Game 7 on their home floor. Because, again, like we've talked about, their struggles have come on the road when they've not been able to shoot the basketball very well. And they've made just 29.9% of their three attempts on the road in the postseason, which is underperforming what they've done at home, because they've shot 36.5. But at home, expected 36.5. But at home, they've made 37.5% of their threes, a perfect match for their expected of 37.5 from three as well. Again, hitting more threes at home has been their recipe for success. And we've seen, again, you listen to all of these other podcasts and they're talking about the exact same thing. SGA is going to get his. J-Dub, I imagine, is going to have a good game. Chet, jury's still out. I think he'll play better, obviously, at home. But you honestly, you look at people that I'm most worried about, him, like Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace, Dort. Like, is Dort going to hit the ceiling again with three and knock it in? Because those seem to electrify the crowd, because he's not been a great 3-point shooter. So when he hits them, it's like, all right, we get bonus Dort threes. So again, and then Aaron Wiggins, just a true menace. I mean, it seems like the Pacers always have these guys, right? Like Gary Trent seemed like that too, just an absolute thorn. Strus at times, right? It just feels like teams always have these guys. McBride, like, I don't know. They've got these guys that are just an absolute thorn in the Pacer side. It's never the big guys. It's always those random guys off the bench, the depth pieces that for some reason decide they want to play well against the Pacers. But that's huge. I mean, they're going to need that. They're going to need their role players to be big. The second key, I've got defensive pressure. I mean, obviously, the defense has been the game changer at OKC, because I was listening to Zach Lowe. He made a really great point. He's like, man, if you look at how good the defense has been with OKC on their home floor, he goes, because that's how great they've been. Like, that's been the reason why they've had this huge margin of victory in each of these games. It's not really been their offense. Their offense has always ended out with the same outcome, like, 100, 110 points. Like, that's right around where they get into that range. So there's nothing more that you're expecting. Like, their offense isn't a truly potent offense. It's got SGA, the MVP. It's got Jada butting into a second superstar, whatever you want to call him. But outside of that, I mean, they rely heavily on somebody getting hot. And, this is something they talked about too on Zach Lowe's podcast, was just the fact that um, it is interesting. Dagnall has not had a true lineup that he's leaned on. I mean, you look back at game 6, how he starts the second half. You look back all the way to game 1 when he's making changes before the series even starts. It's incredible to me, just because imagine could you imagine the outrage of Pacers fans if Rick Carlisle was shifting around his rotations and lineups as much as Dagnall has? And I think that's something that Mark has realized, because yesterday in his press conference he said that, they asked him how it feels to go up against Rick Carlisle, and he said humbling. I think that's awesome. Could you picture having a head coach that is in the head of another head coach so much? I think it's just incredible what Rick has done, his ability to make adjustments. And if you go and look back, I actually pulled this up because I was interested to see, and this is usually a Rick Carlisle thing, because I was like, where can I really find how Rick, and obviously their defensive matchups in game 6 were big. I mean, doubling SGA and then picking up SGA at the lowest point on average this this finals that they have. I mean, it was a tremendous drop off of when they were picking up SGA in the half court. But I was also like, where else can I? So I pulled up the second half stats per game in all of the games, because I think it's fair. In second half of each of these games, so the 6 games played, obviously wins 3-3. The points scored in the second half, points per game per second half: Pacers 56, Thunder 54.7. Field goal percentage 48.1% for the Pacers in second halves in this series. The Thunder only 43.7. The 3-pointers, again, a slight advantage for the Thunder there. 37% from the 3-point line, 36.6% from the 3-point line. Free throws, the Thunder have obviously had a big advantage in that category in a lot of these games, but a 15 free throws made, or sorry, 15 3-point or free throws made per game in the second halves, and 11.2 free throws made in those second halves of the games. But again, you look at the differences, and here's another one that was interesting to me. When you're talking about steals, 5.2 for the Pacers in the second halves of these games, 4.2 for the Thunder. So when they come out of the locker room after those adjustments in that second half, the Pacers look like a totally different team. They're settled into games, and while they've had to try to come back, and that's been it, right? You've talked about the games they've struggled in. They've had to come back. They came back in game 1 after struggling in the first half. They came back in game 5, almost win that game miraculously. In the second half, they come back and storm the Thunder, and then the Thunder finally put it away. But this is a second half team. Throughout this series, the Pacers have been better and have really controlled the games in the second half. I mean, you look at all the breakdowns, it's really been that first quarter we've struggled with. Second quarters, I mean, there's stretches throughout the third and fourth where the offense kind of goes quiet. But ultimately, when you look at total overall per game, the Pacers have had the advantage in a lot of those categories in the second half. And that's because Rick Carlisle and his staff. I mean, obviously give credit to the players, but when you've got a Hall of Fame coach like Rick, who, I mean, if he wins this game, he'll go down. I mean, there's already conversations of like, how high can we put Rick Carlisle? Because he's won now. He will have won 2 NBA titles, probably the biggest upsets in their respective series, with the Mavs versus the Heatles, and now the Pacers versus the Thunder, if this were to happen. So, Pichu, I think is how you say that. Have you seen the KD trade? Yeah. I mean, I saw that it happened. I talked about it a little bit, but I'm not going to get into K. I'm just glad he stayed in the Western Conference. Like, keep them over there. Like, keep everybody over there. This is a lot more fun when the Pacers have all those guys sitting over there, so we can get to where we need to get to next year and the years following. But yeah, I didn't see the trade. I'm sure it's a massive trade, but I didn't see any of the details. So if you want to put the details down there, I can read them. But I'm talking Pacers, and that's funny. Like I said, I don't think David Stern would have let. He's probably rolling around in his grave because of the way they talk about. You need that. What was it? They put that moratorium on the NBA of like, you can't announce these things during the finals because it takes away, which I don't know. I don't know if it does or not. But anyway, obviously it does. We're talking about it. So defensive pressure, again, the turnovers. If I had to point to one thing, it's going to be the turnovers tonight. So if you're trying to figure out tonight what you should be watching for to see how it's going for the Pacers, it's going to be the turnover battle, because I think if the Pacers limit their turnovers, they've got a fantastic chance of winning this. So we'll see what happens, but obviously different things happen. And but I think that's the big key. If the Pacers are under that 13 mark, I would put it at 13, 14, then I think they'd feel okay about what they're doing. But they've gotten to some really dangerous games against this Thunder team. If you keep it in the single digits, oh my, like it might get ugly for the Thunder. Pacers are averaging 109 points per game in OKC, despite the turnovers. So there is that. And the Thunder have 13 steals per game. I think a loss will. Sorry, Dave says, I think a loss will be tougher on OKC. Pacers would still get the respect from fans and a pat on the back, but OKC will have to add the bright pink as to their. Yeah, I don't know what. I think it'll be a massive loss. I Again, like I said, it would be, if you want to put them historically as one of the best teams, you got to also talk about, if they lose this championship, it is one of the most historic collapses / losses in an NBA postseason ever. So, I mean, look at the difference between what people expected the Thunder and Pacers to be, and right there you have your discussion point for why they're historic in the way they've collapsed. Offense has to show up for the Thunder. The Thunder are averaging 117.7 points per game in OKC, 43.4% from the field at home, and 39.8% from three at home. So they are a better shooting team. The threes, I think, are going to the Pacers have to be able to help on Shea, help on J-Dub when that is needed. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to those guys, right? Those role players, if they're able to hit some of their threes, and that looks a lot different on their home floor. They've been able to do it. So that's a reason for concern for the Pacers, is that their supporting cast does show up. So you've got to be able to match them, or at least eliminate some of that ability for them. Number 4 key to the game for the Thunder, J-Dub and Chet. That's going to be a big one. Obviously, what can those two do? Because they are vital to what the Thunder and their offense looks like. J-Dub, 24.2 points per game in this series, and he looked like a bona fide superstar the last time out with that 40-point game in Game 5. He was a minus 40 for Game 6, so let's hope it looks more like that than the 40-plus game. I don't think he has a 40-point game in Game 7, so I'm not sure we really have to worry about that aspect of it. I would be shocked. And if he does that, then they deserve it. But again, I don't see that happening. And I just feel that as bad as Miles' offense has been in this series, Chet has been just a non-factor in most of these games because of Miles Turner's defense and his physicality, which is crazy to say about Miles, because we're not really on here ever talking about, man, Miles' physicality is what changed the game. It's more so of like, once you get into a guy's head, you can live there. You can have a space there. I think Andrew Nembhard has probably guarded Shea the best anybody's guarding him the whole year. I mean, you could make an argument as to Andrew Nembhard is, while Shea is still going to be the MVP, he has caused Shea to think about things more so than anybody else has. KD for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, number 10 pick, and 5 second rounders. He stayed in the West. I'm fully confident Indiana can make a deep run. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Indiana. So that's the trade for KD. It just popped up. That's a lot, obviously, to give up for a 37-year-old. But I mean, the Rockets have to feel like they're one of the teams that could challenge in the West. I just don't know how. I don't know. That'll be a weird. That's a really weird team. But anyway, KD, he has a tendency to destroy teams more than he helps them. What else? Oh yeah, Chet. Again, Miles Turner, I think has been a nuisance. And you could tell early on, I think it was game one. I mean, he would try to do that same thing where he was very successful in Denver. He looked like the arrival of a big three combination in that Denver series because he was taking Aaron Gordon to the house. And he was tremendously successful in scoring in that Denver series. But I also feel like Denver doesn't really have as much besides the 6 players they play, and you just wear them down. And Chet is quicker than the bigs that they had. And defensively, I think that they struggled with Chet, and Holmgren was able to take people out of the dribble and flush it. Well, Miles doesn't really let you do that. Like, Miles is a great rim protector, and he is again, I think that game one where Chet just kept missing those shots he normally makes, I think it just, and now I think there's been 3 or 4 total blocks on the 3-point line from Miles on Chet. And that's a demoralizing block. If you've ever been a shooter, like you've ever been a shooter and you get blocked on the 3-point line, that's always like, oh gosh, how am I supposed to get this? How am I ever supposed to be successful? They're blocking my 3-pointer. Like, that's never good. And then number 5, clutch minutes for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's also going to be key number 5 for the Pacers when we move into their keys of the game, because it's been a difference maker. So we're going to combine these right here. The clutch, and I've heard so many people talk about this, get them to the clutch, and it's true. The Pacers have been a lot better, and what they defined as clutch, obviously, in those minutes that are highly contested games, when games are within reach. The Pacers are 9-2 in clutch situations. They've won 9 games in this postseason out of the 11 games played in the clutch. And the Pacers field goal percentage in the clutch, 46.2%. From 3, they're 36.7%. They are number 1 as far as wins are concerned in those clutch moments. You look at points in the clutch, the Pacers have scored 9.9 points in the clutch moments. And then if you look at the Thunder in their clutch games, right, and they're in clutch situations, the Thunder are 3rd in the NBA, 6-4 in this postseason. They played 10 games in the clutch, and obviously they're a team that does have huge margins of win, but they have played some games in the clutch, and they've actually shown their youth here. So they're 6-4 in the 10 games they've played clutch situations, 45.2% from the field, 35% from the 3-point line. They're a 78% foul shooting team in the clutch compared to the Pacers' 83.9. And then points in those clutch situations, 9.5 for the Thunder. So the Pacers have been the better team in clutch situations. And, this is something that people pointed to when they were picking this series, but, obviously a lot of them did not take stock into that too much because they picked Thunder in 5, Thunder in 6, Thunder in 7, Thunder in 4. But the Pacers have been the much better team because I really do. They've been a lot more clutch situations. Obviously, they've had a lot more of those heroic comebacks. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, the clutch is a big thing. But in a game 7, 48 minutes are clutch. 48 minutes in an NBA Finals game 7 will feel like clutch moments. I do think that the Pacers, this is where the Pacers can make it feel like they are in control. If the Pacers come out and they can match that intensity that the Thunder provide, take that first punch, because it's going to come, because that crowd's going to be bouncing off the walls. They'll be thunderous. I think if the Pacers can weather the storm and swing at them, they will be putting the Thunder in a tough situation. If the Pacers can keep it close in that first quarter where they're in striking distance, and that sounds funny, but the Pacers have been awful in the first quarter against the Thunder in this series when they played in OKC. If they can put the Thunder into their think mode, the Pacers should win this game. I feel confident in saying that if the Pacers can make them feel the moment of how big it is, which they did in game 6, I think that the Pacers have a huge advantage in that category, because the Pacers players, man, they don't, there's not one on this roster that I've ever felt shows up and goes, man, I'm scared of this moment. Maybe Obi Toppin for like a quarter in game 1. But everybody else, like Aaron Nesmith's never afraid of a moment. Andrew Nembhard's not afraid of a moment. Tyrese is definitely not afraid of the moment. Pascal, no. Miles, I think, is going to come out with great intensity. Like, he knows what's on the line. He's been the pacer the longest. I think this game means a lot more to him, and it means a lot more to a lot of people. But I think you could even take him to a different level just because of how long he's been there and how much he's been able to weather that storm. The crowd will be so quiet tonight in the fourth quarter. The crowd will be so quiet tonight in the fourth quarter. You'd be able to make a phone call from your seat. Oh, are we saying they're going to be quiet? Is Dave throwing the confidence out there? Yeah, I mean, you would like to see that, right? Game sevens typically, I mean, I think the dream scenario would be what they did to the Knicks last year, where they came in and like it was almost, I think they shot an insane amount of percentages. In that game 7, the first quarter. Like, can you imagine the Pacers came out, and I know that defense is really good for OKC, so it's liable not to happen, but could you imagine they come out and it's one of those games where they just don't miss? Because we've had those games throughout the regular season, the postseason, where it's just like, are they ever going to miss a basket? That would be insane. I mean, that would be crazy. Dream scenario, right? I think so many people are like, oh, I'd love a close game. I'm like, no, if you're a Pacers fan, of course you want this to be a 20-point game in the fourth quarter, but I just don't think that's going to happen. It would be great, though. It wouldn't. It'd be a lot of fun. Keys to the game for Indiana taking that first punch. I mean, that was a nice segue into it because, again, they're going to come out energized. They're going to be using those clappers to create fake noise like they always do. They have the music up louder than anybody else in the league. Like, it's a great crowd, don't get me wrong, but there is some artificial abilities, I think, for the Thunder to make noise. Turnovers, like I said, that's going to be big. If the Pacers are turning the ball over, that's not good. That's a recipe for disaster and how they've lost the last couple of games in OKC. Rebounding, I think just staying close in the rebounding battle. Actually, I've thought the Pacers have done a really good job of keeping them off the glass, unless his name's Isaiah Hartenstein. So I'm not too worried about the rebounding, to be honest with you. I think there's going to be a focus on all these things tonight. There's a hyper sense of awareness tonight on a lot of these things. Sometimes that can be good. Sometimes that can be bad. I think with the Pacers and their abilities, Dave said I can make bold, crazy predictions because I have no social media consent with. If you're not on socials or not tweeting this out there and you're only doing this on this show, like you're pretty safe in this space. I'm not sure many Thunder people are gonna be listening to this, but maybe, I don't know, glutton for punishment, I guess. Number 4 is pace. I mean, we talk about it, hit that drum every single time, but the reason why I bring up pace here is that if they defend the way they did in Game 6, if the Thunder are missing some shots and the Pacers are out running, or even if the Thunder are making shots, the biggest momentum killer the Pacers can throw at them. And I've seen this happen. We've seen this happen against the Thunder. It's when TJ and them were out there, and Obi and Pascal. Like, the ability to score quickly on those threes that Dort and them hit are crushing. Like, you can see the crowd like go through the roof, and then 2-3 seconds later, the ball's thrown down the court, and all of a sudden that comes all the way back down. So I think that's big when they're making big shots, right? Is to run. And there were some runs that they made in Game 6 early on, the Thunder, where when they'd make shots, Rick would just be like, no, go. I don't care if it's getting a little bit out of go, like keep going. There were even some weird hairy moments in the third where I was like, oh no, don't do this. Don't let them back within 10. There were some moments there where the Thunder felt like they're gone on this little mini run and the Pacers just kept running. And I think a lot of teams are hesitant to do that because it can snowball and get out of hand quickly, but that's not really what this Pacers team is built on. They're built on, no, like that's our strength, is when they try to go on runs, we smash them out quickly. So that's what the Pacers will need to do in Game 7 after made threes, made baskets, especially after made threes, because you got a lot of guys ball watching as those threes go up. It's habit. And so I think you can really catch them off there. And then again, like I said, Game 5, getting into the clutch. Game 5. Getting into the clutch in Game 7. 48 minutes are clutch. I mean, that's what a Game 7 is 48 minutes of being your clutchest version, I guess is the best way to put that. And then kind of wrapping up the episode, we're going to be ranking here players for each team that need to have the biggest impact. Obviously, this is objective, but this is kind of how I feel. I think the number 1 player for them that I feel like I'm going to be watching tonight, obviously Shea's going to get his. I think number 1 is J-Dub, their number 2 star. I think what he does, because he can really impact this game. What he did in Game 5, like you can't really have him doing that. If he's getting to the basket easy, that's a problem. if Pascal Siakam's guarding him, which he did a lot of when the Pacers had that early lead in the game, in game 6, you saw a lot of Pascal on him. I'm not sure Pascal can guard him the whole game. It would wear him down. But if Pascal can guard him for 60 to 70% of the possessions that he's in there, that's a huge lift for the Pacers, I believe, because I think J-Dub did struggle with Siakam's length. And J-Dub's most effective shot is when he's able to get into those, elbow shots, or he's really good at getting to the rim. I think if Pascal's there, he's just not going to have the same success that he would have with a lengthier defender. And Pascal can stay with him pretty well. The thing that I'd be most worried about is if Pascal gets an early foul on J-Dub, you remove him from J, because you cannot have Pascal in foul trouble in this game. But I think his matchup with J-Dub, he just causes more problem with his length. And it's a little bit of a different wrinkle that the Pacers threw at them that I'm not really sure. I don't know how OKC really handles that. They might try the screening, but again, it's Pascal can guard a lot of players. He's very versatile. So that's Dagnall, I think, is the one that compared him to Draymond at times. He does have kind of Draymond-ish abilities where he's just so lanky and is quick enough to stay with guards that it causes problems. So he's number one on my X factor is J-Dub. Like, if he has a 25-point game, they've got a really good chance to win this. If he's, in that 19-17 range, the Pacers have done exactly what they're supposed to do. Number 2, Alex Caruso. He's one of those guys that in a game 7, he's going to be wired, just like TJ is. If that goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He didn't shoot well in game 5 when they were in OKC. I'm hoping that's the same thing, but I could see him hitting some really big shots that we look back on and go, he is just a menace. He's like that version of Gary Trent, I believe, in this series too. But again, I think if he's having a limited impact, and his is more on the defensive side, if he's more limited defensively, if he's not getting those big steals where he's flying all over the floor and sliding and stuff and breaking kneecaps and stuff, I think that he's one that you look at. If he's not got a great game going, Pacers are doing what they're supposed to do. Lou Dort, and the reason why I say this is that he seems to be the one. I mean, I know Wiggins will hit threes. I know Isaiah Joe and them and Case and Wallace have hit some threes there. But Dort's the one that's like, man, like, you're letting him hit threes? Like, the dude's not been a great shooter all season, where the other ones have had success. But, like, Dort's just, the way he shoots it, and I don't know, like, he just seems to hit the back-breaking ones more so than Wiggins and them. And obviously, Wiggins had a really good game too. But I don't know. I just feel like the Dort ones are more of like, oh gosh, like their last option on the floor hit one. So again, I think he's key. And then obviously his defense, that's what makes him really key, is if he's making Tyrese stand at half court, the Pacers are going to have a real tough time winning this game, because he's been an absolute force against Tyrese on his home floor. Number 4 is SGA. I'm going to go there with him. I know that's crazy low for him probably, but I don't know. Like, he's going to get 30. Probably, maybe a little less. That'd be really great if you got less than 30, because that means Nemhard put him in Nem hell. But I just feel like SGA, you know what you're going to get with him, right? I think here's my thing. If he decides to show up and he plays like he did in game 6, the Pacers will win. If he plays like he did in game 5, they'll lose. Like game 5, he became a distributor. He wasn't a great, he's never, I do feel like he's got that mid-range game, but I don't ever feel like he's going to like light a torch on you from the outside. So I do feel like he's going to get his, he's going to have to work for it. He's going to get late in the shot clock to get his. Like, that's just the kind of player he is he's more in that mid-range shot clock, late in the shot clock kind of scorer. Very much like Kobe. Like, Kobe is, relied heavily on that mid-range and hitting those at a high percentage. But it's not like SGA is going to knock down 4 threes, 5 threes. Like, that's just not his game. And he doesn't like to shoot off the dribble for threes. Like, he loves to shoot off the dribble, obviously, in the paint, but like around the paint. But he's not somebody that's going to take you off a pick and just fire a 3. If he is, then well, I think you live with that. But I don't know. I just, SGA is number 4 for me, because there's more important players that need to show up for the Thunder to win. 5, this is the fun one. I've got Wiggins, Joe, and Wallace all in the same category, because honestly, I don't even think Mark Daigneault knows who's going to play more at this point. I think he just randomly looks down the bench and goes, all right, which one's not in? Kaysen, you go ahead. Let's see what you do. That's where I feel like Rick's been a huge advantage. We'll talk about Rick here in a little bit. Number 6, Chet. Again, I think he and Miles have just kind of negated each other's effectiveness. I don't know what it is about those two, or what they've been drinking, or what kind of Gatorade they've got going on. But man, they've both struggled tremendously offensively. They've made some good defensive plays, and they've had some moments where they've scored. But again, the centers are not really the ones I'm looking to make a big difference in this game. Number 7, Hartenstein. It's the offensive rebounding that worries me with him. Nothing more. Honestly, nothing more. I don't think he really adds anything offensively that's too great. I don't think he does anything defensively that's, something like, oh man, Hartenstein changed the game defensively. Like, he's just not that kind of guy. He's a very good offensive rebounder, and he'll get those little ugly looking floating things that he throws in there. It looks like he's scared to throw them up there. It looks like he's throwing darts. Indiana, number 1, Tyrese. I'm going opposite here. I'm going Tyrese has to have a big game. And by that, I don't mean 20 points. I don't mean 30 points. I mean 14 and 10, 14 and 8, 16 and 10, 16 and 9. Like, that kind of game. That's the kind of game that we need. Like, I don't need Tyrese to go out there and score 20. I don't. It's great when he does. We win when he does, but that's not what he's doing in this series. So to get to 16, like to get to 14 or 15 and have 7 or 8 assists, that's when you're like, all right, like we're getting somewhere. It's really assists that, you really notice with Ty. Even steals, like, is he engaged on the defensive end? He makes some big defensive plays. He loves to live in the passing lanes. He's become a very good defender, honestly, from what he was. Like, he's solid now. Like, he makes some plays. You're like, dang. I do expect OKC to try to attack him more, but I don't know. Like, when they do that, though, like it plays kind of into the Pacers' hand, because when they attack Tyrese, they know that they could probably get some buckets from SGA in that range he likes to get in. But SGA's you then leave a better defender on whoever just picked, like Pascal out there on Dort, or Neesmith out there on Jay. Like, you've got better defenders replacing Tyrese, so it's kind of weird. Like, you can attack a weak point, but Tyrese isn't to the point where he's like so weak that you just score every time down. He's become a much better. It's a 50-50 shot then, so that's much better than what he used to be. Used to be it's like, dude, are you ever going to stop anybody? Now he's become like. And because he's got length too, there are some times where SGA's tried to go up over him, and he's a little different. Like, that's a little different than a 6'4" Nembhard at best over a 6'6" Tyrese Haliburton with long arms. Like, it might not be the most physical thing you see, but Tyrese has an ability where his length can sometimes impact what SGA is shooting. So that'll be fun. Tyrese Haliburton again, though. You can't let Lou Dort just isolate you by yourself, like standing over there. I think you're going to see a lot more. Again, I said this last thing, and I think people might have probably thought I was crazy when I said this, but I do think that some of Tyrese's limitations with the calf thing has actually, it's forced him to be a little bit more off ball, and he's honestly been better off ball, coming off ball to get the basketball from Nembhard or Pascal. He just has been. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know why that is, but I think because Dort's having to fight through screens, and then Tyrese can initiate and he's on the move, and then Dort has to catch up to him. I think that's been the biggest thing is Dort's not just standing out there with him by himself, and he has to just get around one screen. So I think that, honestly, it's weird how the calf thing has worked out somewhat. Pascal, number 2. Again, I think you just need a 20-point game from him. Like, I know it's crazy. Zach Lowe mentioned this. There's not one Pacer. He's like at 19.8 points per game. There's not one Pacer averaging over 20 points, which is really interesting when you talk about if they did win a title, who would be their finals MVP. I think you give it to Pascal, but could you give it to TJ? Like, could you give it to Obi Toppin if he played well? Like, it's just weird that those names come up in a finals MVP, because you'd think it would be runaway Tyrese or Pascal, but it's just not been that way. Number 3 is Andrew Nembhard. So here's the thing. In games they've needed Andrew Nembhard the most, and I thought about putting him number 1. In the games that they've needed Andrew Nembhard the most, Andrew Nembhard has come out with a dog-like mentality. A complete dog. Think about it. Game 6, Jalen Brunson came out, and Jalen's never seen defense like that. Not in his life has he ever seen anything like that. To the point where he's headbutting Andrew Nembhard. You look back at what he's done against some of the best players in this league. He has done that to people. Damian Lillard. You can see why he is so difficult to deal with, because They don't really need him offensively. I mean, they do at certain points, but like they're not relying on Andrew Nemhard to score you 15 to 20 points. So he's allowed to take a lot of those and possessions and kind of burn his energy out on the defensive side. He's just got a different level when he knows it's blood in the water type stuff. He becomes filthy on the defensive end. So he's somebody. Just watch when he comes out. Just watch his intensity on SGA is going to be like nothing SGA's seen in his life. TJ and Obi on the number 4 spot here together because they come as a package deal. It seems like when one plays well, the other one plays pretty well too. So, and the way they've played in this series, I mean, the thing about TJ is his ability to get in the paint. He completely saws off the OKC defense at the knees when he gets into the paint, and he's great at getting baseline. And the thing about getting baseline is the easiest pass out of a baseline is into those corners where the Pacers have shot, I think 47% almost from 3 in those corner spots. So that's big. Aaron Nesmith's going to have to hit some shots. Number 5, I've got Miles, more so about like defensively, obviously, but like he has to have one game, right? He has to, like, one game where he's hitting threes. Could this be it? If not, then I mean, it's just not been his series. But it feels like Miles could be like one of those guys we're talking about tomorrow. And like, dude, Miles Turner, man, that'd be awesome. It'd be awesome for the storyline. Number 6, Aaron Nesmith, again hitting those threes, and then just when he's on J-Dub, not letting J-Dub get easy baskets. That's all we really ask. Number 7, Benedict Mathurin. I just don't know what it looks like, right? I think that's become the story of Benedict Mathurin, and no fault of his own. He's got not really any playoff experience, obviously, but also he's been on this roller coaster ever since he's been in the NBA. It's a young player who's got dog-like mentality, who wants to do well, but I think puts a lot of pressure on himself to do well. And then he's not the best defender, so there's moments where he's got lapses and he can cost you some points. It's tough. Like Ben could come out here and score 15. And I wouldn't be shocked, but Ben could literally play 4 minutes, and I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Number 8, Shep. I think Shep will have a couple of moments where he could make an impact, probably hitting threes. And then number 9, I don't know if Tony Bradley's playing, but I imagine he will. I imagine he'll get some run in this game. I know that's crazy to say in a game 7 where you would be more inclined to have Rick play, but I mean, it's worked, right? This formula has worked, so I guess Rick, he's not going to wait till the last game to probably stray from that. So I imagine you'll get some Tony Bradley on Hartenstein because, to be honest with you, he played well in game 6. I thought he's been fine. Like, he's not been like a true negative in this series. Like, he's not your best option, but he's played well. He's played well enough to earn some minutes to try to keep Hartenstein away from the glass. That's fine. The Pacers need that sometimes. So that's my number 9. What does this title mean for both games? This will kind of wrap it up, and then we'll talk about one more thing. First NBA title for OKC. This is a historic team, so obviously finally getting to the mountaintop and completing it with the best team you've ever seen, as far as OKC is concerned, and one of the top in the NBA ever. I think that's a big thing. Oklahoma City, statistically, just a huge difference over everybody. The only champion to finish the season with more than 84 wins. The only champion to finish the season with more total wins than the Thunder's 84, if Oklahoma City finishes the job, was the 1995, 1996 Chicago Bulls. So, like, arguably there you could put them in the second best team to ever exist. Like, that's crazy to have a season like that. Shea, MVP, entering his prime. Jalen Williams, All-NBA sidekick. Chet Holmgren, all-defensive player and All-NBA type potential. That's kind of his year that he's had when healthy. That would mean a lot to those 3 at the very ripe young age Shea's a little older. I think he's 25, 26. So he's a little older, but that's big. And again, like Dave said, OKC is a new team, 17 years. Yes. But also, when you've had that many MVPs to not at least get to the point where you could win one. Like, I know they did get to one eventually to when they got to the Heat, but, with their run and their Sam Presti ability to just find guys, right? I feel like the Thunder, they've, as crazy it is to say, like, they've had their chances, right? They've just never gotten there. Whereas Indiana, like you said, Dave, like, Indiana's been around for a long time, right? So Indiana's had way more opportunities, has gotten way more history, way more story to their history. And this would mean it means more for Indiana, I think. OKC is going to have more opportunities. I truly do believe that when you've got an MVP player like SGA, you're going to have other opportunities. Now, do you ever get to an NBA Finals again? I don't know. Like, that's never promised, but you would think, right, with SGA, the way that he's played, they're eventually going to see this again. Indiana, again, I would love to make the case that they're going to see this again coming up soon, but you never know, right? Crazy things happen. So here's what it would mean for Indiana. Biggest upset in NBA history. Indiana entered the playoffs as the number 4 seed, right? Again, the only other team below that was the number 6 Rockets back in 1995-6, I think it was. So that would be crazy. They would have defied all odds against. I mean, if you take every single game that they trailed in, and not like it was like it really didn't cost them. I mean, game 1 in New York was probably the biggest of them all because of like what that would have meant. It would have been Indy down 1-0. The Cavs game was, I think it would have been 1-1, right? The Bucks, it would have been going back to Milwaukee for game 6, but again, I still felt comfortable if the Pacers had to go back and win 2 games. So, but I would argue that the Knicks comeback was the biggest. That Aaron Nesmith one was absolutely insane. And then game 1 of the NBA Finals, obviously. But if you go back and add those games in, and then add in the fact that they're the biggest upset in NBA history, add in that this is the most historic, one of the most historic teams, like this seriously should be deemed the most improbable NBA championship that a team has ever won. Ever. Like, without question. And for decades, that this should be, unless some team is able to somehow replicate what they've done, this should go down as the most improbable that's ever existed because of all the things they've done. Starting 10 and 15, right? I'd love to know the numbers of teams that have started 10 and 15 that have gone on to play in the NBA Finals. Probably pretty low. So I think that's it. The fact that there are, I think I Googled this, it was like they're approaching 1 million in Indianapolis area as far as population. But just the fact that like they are the Indiana Pacers, the whole state is behind this team, plus us as the outcast, like me in Orlando. Like this would mean, I mean, just think about all the heartbreak we've been through, right? I know OKC has had some heartbreak. I get it. Not like us, right? We have had the most heartbreak of arguably any NBA franchise. Think about it. Our 2 star players who could have been in MVP conversations, and Paul George and the way Victor Oladipo was becoming a monster. Like those 2, and then Reggie. And you think about these guys, right? And you're just like, the things that they've had to run up against, and finally the Pacers have a chance in an NBA Finals. It would mean so much more for Indiana. It really would. And I'm trying to remove the bias behind that, but I just can't. Like I know what it means. I understand OKC's side of it, but they'll get there again probably. So let us have it. So I don't know. It feels like it's so much more, doesn't it? It feels like we're one of the only, there's not very many teams left that's got the no title mark on them. We're one of them. And I mean, especially teams that have been around long. Like the history of this, embrace the bias. Yes, embrace the bias. We get a shirt that says that, embrace the bias. Go Pacers. I feel like we would like that's what do Alex and Fauci call him? Screaming A. Smith. Like he embraces his bias and he's on national television. So why can't I? Exactly right. So it'd be historic. I well up thinking about it. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. I'll be a wreck tonight if they win it. I'll just say that right now. Like, you want to see a lot of grown men cry? Have the Pacers win. You will see a lot of grown men crying, or in women. So, I think about this too. Like, I think about like the 8-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, the 12-year-olds out there that are like this is their first real memory of the Pacers, and this is like their first time watching the Pacers, and you're just like, what? Like, you got to the last 2 years, you've seen an Eastern Conference Finals run, and you've seen an NBA Finals run where the Pacers have a chance to win a title by winning one game. Like, lucky, man, lucky. Dave, tears of joy tonight. Count on it. Oh yeah, like again, like I was talking about early in the show. I'm a big Cubs fan. In 2016, they won it, and I mean, 108 years. Like, there's no other drought like that. Obviously, I'm not 108, but the fact that like I was, what was I? 2016. I was 2016 was what, 9 years ago? Yeah, 9 years. So I was like 23, I think 24. I've never cried really over. I remember I cried when Reggie retired. I remember that. That was heartbreaking watching that. I was young, like I was younger that watching him. Trying to think of other sports times, like Paul George. I didn't cry, but I was like, when he got hurt, that was probably the most devastated I've ever been as a like hopeful. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, man, the Pacers are right there. And then in that summer, and then I remember reading David West tweet, like, are you kidding me? Like, you got to be kidding me. To watch that go down in flames, that was rough. That was really rough. 2016, like I said, with the Cubs. So I've seen my teams win a game 7 before on the road. I'd love to see another one. It always seems that way, right? And that's another thing. I think Scott Adkins tweeted this. The Pacers won, I think it was it 3 ABA titles? But anyway, every title that they have won on the road. The Pacers have. So, could you imagine, Dave? I know you're there, so that's why I say Dave in particular. But imagine this Pacer team winning on the road in that crowd. I can still get emotional thinking about John Elway's first Super Bowl win. This one's for John. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. I think with Colts fans too, right? Back when Peyton won his, like that was probably a moment. That's another good question. I think 1070 the fan with James Boyd, Mark Mark Dykes and Jeff and Kevin Bowen. They were talking about, does this supplant a Colts Super Bowl title? And I'm not a Colts fan. Shockingly enough, I'm not a Colts fan. That's a fun story. But yeah, would this take over a Colts Super Bowl with Peyton? I personally think so. I mean, it's the Hoosier state, right? We're living out the Hoosiers. In fact, I kind of want to go watch. I'm probably going to watch that movie after I'm done recording this. But yeah, this is Hoosier-esque, like the movie. I mean, this is a basketball state, right? 49 other states, it's just basketball. But this is Indiana, yes, because of the history, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, the Colts coming over from Baltimore. I know there was a lot of mixed feelings about that, and that kind of has my dad was a big Dan Marino fan. He liked to root against the Colts because then the Colts come from Baltimore. Colts arrive. It's more fun to root for Dan. Dan never won, so that's not been as fun. The Dolphins have sucked ever since I've watched them, but yeah, no, this is cool. This is a lot of fun. I know a lot of Hoosier fans have had some happy memories with the college basketball team there in Bloomington. I am a Hoosiers fan, but we've had some success there, not with the football team, but just thinking about it, like the state in general. I mean, the state that I would say owns the beginning of basketball. I mean, I know the New York people will say different, but like, come on, we are the state that created basketball, and the reason why it stays. But I think there's not really any other state like that would love a. I mean, everybody in that, like I said, everybody in that state would be at a parade. So I'm really excited about this game. The last thing I want to mention, I'm not going to predict. I think Game 7s are just so. I feel good. I can say that I feel really good about the Pacers going into Game 7. I think the defense, how OKC plays defensively, is ultimately going to decide what happens in this game. If the Pacers can handle them and stay out of the turnover game, they'll win. If the Pacers can limit their turnovers, I think the Pacers win the basketball game. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. another reason I feel very confident about this, and I think we've got to mention it, is Rick Carlisle, right? Is what does he have up his sleeve? He's got things up his sleeve. I think Mark Daigneault, a young coach, great coach, has not been good in this series, I don't think. And I think he kind of realizes that, because when he says that he's been humbled, I mean, you don't often hear a coach say that. Um, Rick's probably got like a thick binder of Game 7 situations that he can throw out there. I just think Rick's that kind of guy. Like, Rick's that kind of guy. It's like, all right, here's one more little thing I can throw in there. I'm not sure it's predetermined what he's going to do in those situations, but like, he's got a knack for, like, he goes like, I would love to sit with him and just be like, love to see the time where he decides, all right, this is what we're going to do. If I was coach, I'd say to the team, what are you guys doing here? You're not supposed to be here. But since you are, I guess it's time to go out there and kick their ass. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that, and they've asked Rick about, I can't talk, Rick, about that. Right, Dave? And Rick has said, and this staff has said, we've not ever really needed to say anything to this team. Like, this team's just got that thing, right? They've got that. And I think it's because of where they come from. Honestly, I think it's where not one of them, Dave and fans, not one of them, not anybody on this Pacer team has ever been thought of as like, oh yeah, they are star level talent. Like, this is gonna. Every single one of these players has been doubted to the point of, like, knock them out of the league doubted. I mean, look at him up and down the roster. Obi Toppin, no minutes in New York, they give up on him. TJ McConnell, I mean, Pacers signed him on almost a desperation. And if you go back, there was a stat that said that statistically, TJ McConnell was the worst NBA player. I forget which season it was, but the year before, I think he comes over to Indiana, he was statistically the worst NBA player by the minutes he combined. Aaron Nesmith, they called him a paperclip, right? Bleacher Report. Sorry, that's my cat. Hi. You want to get on this? She's been doubted too. But yeah, Benedict Mathurin obviously is probably the outlier in this one. Jarris Walker's not playing in this one, so we can count him out. But like, Tony Bradley's jumped around to teams. Nesmith, Pascal Siakam was in the G League winning championships from Cameroon, the kid from Cameroon, right? Tyrese Haliburton, not a big recruit coming out of high school. I think it was in the 12 to 13 range, I think, in the NBA was when he was drafted by Sacramento. Andrew Nembhard, a second round pick. They thought he was too small for the league, not enough offensive game for the league. So many teams passed on him. Miles Turner, I mean, hell, the fan base has doubted Miles. So, like, everybody else has too. So, you just up and down that roster, you go and you find guys that just every single moment in their life comes to this point, and it comes to a head because at every point in their life where they've turned to play basketball, somebody has told them they can't do it. Game 7 is going to be the same. Everybody out there is pretty much convinced that the betting odds, most of the staffs that are picking this game are saying Thunder, and they're saying Pacers only out of the respect of the Pacers at this point. Like, they're being forced into it. It's not like this. Nobody had the Pacers winning this series, I think, besides Pacers fans. I mean, I had them in 6, but I mean, even a lot of people that cover the Pacers have the Thunder still. So we'll see. This has been a lot of fun, though. I really appreciate all the interactions, all the comments, everybody that's watched, tuned in. Again, we're just trying to pass time until this game. So I'm actually going to download this video, re-upload it. So this video will pop up again. It's just a rewind of me doing this. But I wanted to do it live because I wanted to see if there was some interaction. So Dave, again, thank you so much for subscribing and following along. This has been a lot of fun. And we'll be on here regardless, talking about how this Game 7 ended. And then we'll be talking also about the off season and all the things that are coming. We'll do some exit interview type episodes. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna be talking to players, but I'll go through probably each player and talk about that. But again, Game 7 tonight, drop some final predictions. What do you think happens with the Indiana Pacers? Are we going to be coming home, I guess, to Indianapolis with a Larry O'Brien trophy. We're going to be coming home empty-handed. Do you see this season as a success if they lose it tonight? Obviously, I think the answer is pretty resounding yes, but I know some people out there that are probably like, no, I expected a title. So this is disappointing. I know the players probably will think of it that way, right? And that's another reason I've got some confidence is that every time that this team has been doubted, every time that this team has been told, no, you can't do it, they've done it, right? They've done it. Big win or respect from the league for a game run or for a great run. Yeah, like they'll be talked about, and honestly, I don't see any other team besides maybe some big trades. I still think they and the Cavs back and forth between who's the favorite next year, and I still think they're better than the Cavs no matter what they do. So that's my personal opinion, but I mean, I think with some of the flexibility the Pacers will have, be able to trade some stuff, maybe add another player, maybe sign Miles Turner, go into the luxury tax because it sounds like they're doing that. So yeah, both are a win. Respect and a big win would be, again, like I said, we will be talking about this. We will still be talking about this Pacer team every time we talk about the NBA Finals. We'd love to talk about it like it ended with the Pacers winning it, and there has never been a bigger surprise to anybody. And again, like I said, I got confidence in the fact that like if this truly is the team of destiny, we might get what we want tonight. Is SGA guaranteed to be Finals MVP if OKC wins tonight? That's a good question. Yes, I think because of his performances in games that they've won. I know J-Dub is like if J-Dub had a really good night tonight, I could see maybe some conversation. But ultimately, those writers, I mean, look at the team. They're not where they are without SGA in this finals. He just does so much. Yeah, I mean, I think he's guaranteed, right? I think he's guaranteed. Now, if you ask me who is the Finals MVP if the Pacers win it, I would still put money on Pascal to win it. But I'm not kidding when I say that Obi Toppin and TJ would be would be in a conversation, which is bonkers to say. But I could see it. Like if TJ came out tonight and scored 18 again, could you imagine? There would be conversations of like, should we give it to TJ McConnell? Be nuts, right? But yeah, I mean, as far as the game goes, I think you got to feel good about going in tonight. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to really add. I don't think so. It's been so much fun. I mean, I'm trying to appreciate every moment of this, and tonight I won't appreciate it if we lose. But I think tomorrow and in the weeks to come, I think thinking back on this season, I think it'll be just so much to really reflect on and appreciate about this team. And then moving forward, I mean, we're in a good spot. And obviously, you're never promised to get back here again. And I get that. But also, this is a team that I believe could do it, that could go back to back, that could come back, that could get to a title again if they don't win it here. Like, I do believe that Tyrese Haliburton is going to be a mainstay in Indianapolis. I don't think he's going anywhere ever. OKC fans are more nervous than we are. Absolutely. You know what's weird is that you hate to say this, but like, you ever felt like you were playing with house money in a game set? It kind of feels like it, right? Like it's weird to say that, but like it also there's a lot more to lose, I think, on the line for OKC. And that's also why I think their players are going to come out. And SGA, that was one of the more interesting conversations he had yesterday at Media Day and the game before, after game 6. He had talked about how they look jittery. That's not good because from game to game, that just won't go away. I get it if you're going home, but like if the Pacers push them just a little, if the Pacers get a lead in the first quarter, those fans are going to get really antsy because they were all but a lock to win it. Right? They're the whole season they got to be thinking, man, we're a lock to win this. We got the MVP. We've got we got SGA doing everything he can. We got J-Dub, who's a budding superstar. He, generational talents. Jet looking like he's going to become the big 3, right? And then all of a sudden, you run through the postseason. You have a really good, scary series against Denver. You knock off a former champion in the Nuggets, right? And then you go to Minnesota, who were in the Western Conference Finals last year, and smack them around. And you go through a Western Conference that everybody will say, and probably true, that the Western Conference is much more deep than the East. So you march through there and you win 68 games, and then you come in to play this number 4 seed Indiana. Like, who are they? And then you go, oh, that's not good. Because the Pacers truly in this series, I feel have now had 2 opportunities to win a title. I thought game 4, they had an opportunity there, and then tonight they'll have an opportunity. So they've had 2 opportunities to win a title in this series. Where the Thunder, right? The Thunder have had one real shot, because game 6, they were awful. They weren't beating anybody in game 6. They weren't beating that Pacers team in game 6. No matter if the Pacers had won game 4, like Pacers had won, like I had no confidence that the Thunder were going to win game 6. None. So we will see. I think it's going to do it for me on this episode. If you're not following us over on socials, if you got socials, we are over at the Pacers Fever Show, where we'll be live tweeting as much as we can during the game, but it's been harder and harder as the more anxious I've gotten. But we're the Pacers Fever Show over on X, on Facebook. We'll eventually do some TikTok. I also do cover the Indiana Fever, so if you're interested in that kind of content, I know they play here in about an hour, but it's been really hard to do this content and prep for all this content while doing the Fever. So we've gone to more of like a 1 episode per week. But once we get this game over with, really, we'll be back to recapping every single Fever game as well. And then the Fever's postseason run. Hopefully they have a good run in them. Caitlin Clark, not so good in the game against the Valkyries, not a good game against Golden State. They really got to get on a run here, because their season's only 44 games. So they're scuffling a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on. Stephanie White's had to miss a couple of games, but they've been a lot of fun to watch. And what an exciting time in Indianapolis, right? You got the Pacers and the Fever with generational talent on both sides of it, and teams that I think will contend for titles coming up in the years to come. And that's really exciting as a sports fan. So looking forward to that. If you want the audio version, we're also Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your audio versions of podcasts, you can find us there. Subscribe, like, comment, share over on YouTube. If you'll give us 5 stars, that'd be great over on the audio side of things. If you give us a thumbs up here, that helps people find us, helps us build the community. I really appreciate everybody that's jumped on here and listened to me ramble on for about 2 hours about the Pacers. Again, we're just trying to kill time. I can't believe it's only 2:00. I got to go watch the Hoosiers or something. The Hoosiers movie, not the basketball team. But yeah, I'll probably go watch them, and then the Fever and Cubs. They're all playing here. So some things to do to keep me busy, but all I'll be thinking about is the Pacers. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We hope to see you guys next time with the Indiana Pacers as NBA champions. Let's go get it done. Let's see what we got. This will be a lot of fun. Hope to see you guys soon, and hope to see you guys as NBA champions.